Okay, so this is that vertebral level list that I posted on the Maya site. I'll post it on the anatomical studies site too. Reason I'm posting it is to help me point out to you what I'm using to guide. So there's a C3s where the hyoid bone is, superior border of the thyroid cartilage is C4, cricoid cartilage, C6, um, larynx ends, trachea begins around C6, T2, the jugular notch. So what I've done is brought in some elements. This is a vertebral column drawn again by Dr. Paul Richer. Um, I've it's actually the entire column. What I've done is move it and use a photograph to kind of roughly position where I think this would be. This line represents C7, so here's T1, T2, and we learned from that vertebral level chart that T2 is about where the sternal notch is. So I'm going to change the vertebral to a multiply so I can see through it, and I'm going to lower its opacity so I can use it as a guide. And now I've got a diagram. Let me put this as an actual normal. So this is an illustration that I did years ago, Adobe Illustrator. And I mentioned to you initially, or what I used to do is work from a library of Adobe Illustrator files. So I have pretty much the entire body, all the skeletal elements, all the major organs and tissue on separate layers. And this was some of the components I use for a section. And what I'm going to do now is try to follow the guide that we just found from that diagram. So I'm going to scale this. So this is C1, C2. So the the hyoid cartilage needs to be a little taller. That's about there. I can do the same thing I did with the vertebra. Go to multiply so I can see through it. It's a little more difficult to make out. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go to normal and just reduce its opacity a little bit. Okay. Tell it that's okay. Place it there. Now, just a note about how I brought this in. I don't expect you guys to go make something in Adobe Illustrator. This is just easier for me to do, and I want to show you some ideas that you can do, even if you don't have an Illustrator file like this. But what I've done is left this as a vector smart object, and I've actually also, when I copied this from Illustrator and pasted it, and when I did that, when you take an Illustrator file and copy it, when you bring it into Photoshop and you say paste, it asks you, do you want to paste it as a smart object, pixels, paths, or shape layer? Pixels would be raster, like a Photoshop file, so you'll lose any of the individual separation. A smart object is what I have here, so it's a scalable vector. And paths are what you imagine that to be. I went in and separated each one of these layers into a path. So if I click on it, you should see it. There you go. There's the thyroid. Okay, I'm still too. There's the hyoid bone. Now if I hold the shift key down and add, you can see I've taken each one of these layers and separated them. So I have these guides now to help me. And I'm going to show you in a little bit how I'm going to use those, okay? So what would have been really, in an ideal situation, I would have had all of these references at one time and scaled everything so that I was building with this head. But what I'm trying to show you is how can I kind of utilize things I've done with other jobs, if you will, and put them all together. So I'm trying to line up my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this is where the cricoid cartilage should be. And you see I'm a little bit high still, but I'm about where the highlights. So I'm going to just actually oops, I'm sorry, I'm going to wrong layer there. Make my vector layer. Yeah. Turn the path off. Go back to the layer. Make the smart layer active. So Command T. I might have a selection going here somehow. Why is it only giving me that? Yeah, it's oh, I see, I pasted something by accident there. Sorry, guys. Not sure what that is, but I'll get rid of it. There we go. Now let's go back to the smart layer. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to stretch it a little bit because I don't think it should be any bigger. I just think I'm not quite in sync here. So that's 7, so that's 6. So now my cricoid is on 6. And we said I'm cheating and looking at the table. We said the sternal angle, we did that. What I'm looking for is the larynx ends at 6 as well. So that's about where we are. 6 is there. That's a little high maybe, but I'm going to leave it like that. Okay. Lower it a little bit more. There we go. So there's 6, larynx, 6. All right, hit return. That's what we've got. So I have these layers. I'm going to just lock them, and I'm going to go back to the multiply for the thyroid cartilage and its elements, and I'm going to hide the vertebral column for right now, and then I can decide how much of that I want. Now I found that this really is very helpful. I almost found that it's actually more effective if I'm trying to work with a schematic model like this. Is more of a graphic to get through, and you could start using a layer of highlights and minimize things here. But I'm going to show you in just a second how I might build this in Photoshop using this. Okay, so